Hello, welcome to the video. Today I am here to do a quick little unhaul for you. I have
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
10 books to share with you that I am getting out of my collection. Some of them, well, actually, I don't think there's necessarily hard feelings against any of these books. This is just going to be me going over some books that I have read or DNF'd that I just don't feel the need to hold on to. So I'm gonna start off with 3 books all at once, and it is the beginning of a series, the first 3 books in a series. I read part of the first book a couple of times. Like, the first time I read it, I read more than half of it. The second time I didn't get nearly as far before I realized that I just didn't like some of the more problematic elements. It is a fantasy series. It is an older fantasy series, and the people that I know that have read it have really enjoyed it. It's from 2001 or earlier, so it is an early 2000s, if not 90s fantasy series. That is Kushiel's Dart. So I'm going to be getting rid of Kushiel's Dart, Kushiel's Chosen, and Kushiel's Avatar. I read Kushiel's Dart back in, I think, college, and I got halfway through it. The bookmark is still in here from when I read it the first time. But then the second time I got it as part of my, oh, it's actually still in here, my Simplify the Stacks series. And I ended up getting it on audio from the library, and I think I made it about 50 pages before I ended up giving up on it. In this series, you are following our main character, Phaedra, who is marked as different when she is very young, and she is sold into indentured servitude to a certain man, a nobleman, who notices that she is touched by Kushiel's Dart, which means she is forever destined to experience pain and pleasure as one. So basically this nobleman raises her and trains her in the art of the bedroom. How do I put this in a way that's not like too graphic? And also espionage, basically. So he wants to send her to the court to spy for him. And in order to do that, she uses these bedroom skills as a courtesan. All that being said, that's not the issue that I took with this book, especially not the second time through. I took more issue with the fact that this girl was sold as a child into indentured servitude, and as punishment, they would do things such as whip her. And it's very graphic on page, and I just was very uncomfortable with it. Mind you, what I said, like, she experiences pain and pleasure as one. So this is kind of like where she realized, or like where they realized, like, oh, she kind of likes it. But I don't want to read that in graphic detail on the page when it involves children. So it was a no from me. I know, like, I read over half of this book at one point in my life. I read 459 pages of this. So like, I know it's not that bad for me to have read like a decent chunk of it at one point. As an older reader in a 2024 lens, because I read this last year, I just couldn't do it. I wasn't feeling it. I don't want to read that on page, and I'm just at a place in my life where there's no room for this. And that's all. So it's not necessarily hard feelings. I don't think it aged particularly well, but if you're into that kind of story, it's a long series for a reason. People were obviously, you know, there are people that this is written for. This might be for you. It's just not for me at this stage in my life. If I ever do want to read it in the future, my library has it. I can get it from there. It doesn't need to stay on my shelf. Next, I have 2 books that were also, well, one of them was a victim of Simplify the Stacks, and the other one just kind of goes with it because it's by the same author. So for Simplify the Stacks, I tried to read Dance, Dance, Dance by Haruki Murakami. I did not enjoy this book. It involved an older man and a younger girl, and I just wasn't into it. I can't get behind that. There's not really any hard feelings. I'm sure at the time this book was written, it served a purpose, especially in the culture that it was written for. So this book was written in the 80s in Japan. So I'm sure at that time in that culture, it served a purpose. But for me, again, in a 2024 lens, because I read this last year, it just wasn't for me. I wasn't enjoying it. and I don't need to keep it on my shelf. Similarly, again, I just don't like the style, so I am also going to be getting rid of Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami, which I have actually heard even worse things about. So if I didn't like Dance Dance Dance, I don't think I'm gonna like Norwegian Wood, so I'm just gonna get rid of both of them. Next is a book I did read, and I just don't think I'm ever gonna read it again, and that is Countess Below Stairs by Eva Ibbotson. This book is following a Russian princess who, was she Russian? Yes. Who escaped Russia after the Russian Revolution and settled in England. Was it in England? Did I actually read this book? I'm pretty sure she settles in England, and because they had to escape Russia in a hurry, they arrived in England pretty much with nothing. So she ends up becoming a servant to the Earl of Westerholm, who is also kind of a reluctant earl, if you will. And you're just following them in this story. This is not the type of thing that I normally read. I don't read a lot of historical romance, but this was really nice. I enjoyed it. The writing style was very easy to follow. There was humor in it that I didn't expect, and I had a really good time with it. But that being said, I'm never going to read it again, so that's the only reason that I'm getting rid of it. I think someone else would also enjoy this book, so it's not doing any good just kind of collecting dust on my shelf when I think someone else could really enjoy it. Next, I'm getting rid of The Walled City by Ryan Groden. This book is good. However, I read it maybe like a year ago, probably less than a year ago, and I can't really tell you anything about it. This book is based on Kowloon City, which is a real walled city that existed in Hong Kong. I don't know when. She doesn't give a year, I don't think. But there is, okay, so how do I put this? This book is a book based on an Asian city written by a white author. That being said, I think she did a decent job with it, and she also put an author's note in that explains why she wrote this book and like how she went about writing this book. And basically she says it doesn't fit in a category of historical fiction and it was never intended to. While I did extensive research on the actual Kowloon walled city and tried to portray it as closely as possible, I also employed artistic license to convey the story that I wanted to tell. This can be seen in the name changes. She employed creative license. She also did rely heavily on like Asian culture and like names and stuff. So do with that what you will. That being said, I remember really enjoying this book while I read it. I'm never going to read it again. That's the only reason I'm getting rid of it. I think someone else could enjoy it, but it was fun while I read it. So you're following your main character, Jin, and she goes into this walled city to save her younger sister who ended up, I think she was trafficked or kidnapped or something, and brought to the city. So Jin is throughout this entire book trying to save her younger sister. She meets a couple other people along the way. It was fun. That's really all I remember about this book. Again, I didn't hate it. Like I enjoyed it while I was reading it, but it's just not super memorable and I don't think it necessarily needs to sit on my shelves because I'm never going to read it again. Do you see a theme here? That is also true of this next book, Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. I read this, then I read the second one, and then I kind of stalled out on it. It's a 4-book series, young adult paranormal fantasy from, I believe, the early 2000s. That's pretty much all I feel like I need to say about this one, and you can kind of like get the vibe. But I enjoyed this for what it was. Like going into it, I was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did, especially since if you are not new here, you may know, if you know anything about my reading taste, I do not like books about angels. It's just not my thing. That being said, I did enjoy this enough to read the second one, not enough to continue to the third. It doesn't need to stay on my shelf. I got the enjoyment out of it that I'm going to get out of it, and I'm never going to read it again. This next one, I do have a little bit of hard feelings towards. Not a ton, but there were definitely very specific things that I did not like about this book, and that is When Katie Met Cassidy by Camille Perry. In this book, we're following our main characters, Katie and Cassidy. Katie and Cassidy meet at an office. They are on, I believe, opposite sides of a big deal that's going on or something. And throughout this book, you watch them as they kind of fall for each other and begin kind of this like, I don't want to call it tumultuous relationship because it's not really, but they begin a relationship. My issues with this book is that I'm pretty sure Katie before the start of this book, I know she's a character, but I'm pretty sure she had never met a gay person before in her entire life, just because of the way that she talked about them, the stupid questions that she asked, and the way she talked about herself once she developed feelings for Cassidy. Camille Perry did Cassidy dirty. Was Cassidy perfect? No. But she did not deserve the, like, mess that was Katie trying to figure out her sexuality. I did not like this book because Katie was so insufferable and so stupid and so annoying. I remember getting to the end of it and putting the book down and just being like, Cassidy deserved so much better. Was Cassidy perfect? Absolutely not. She was definitely a flawed character, as all great characters are, but she definitely didn't deserve Katie. Katie was a new level of stupid, and I just did not like her at all. Also, I feel like there was just a slight hint of like bi erasure in this book. I understand that the point of this book is a woman coming out and coming to terms with her sexuality not being what she thought it was and what she was raised to believe that it was. But being bi is also a thing. There's a point in this book where she went from like, oh, I'm straight to, oh, well, I like one girl, I must be a lesbian now. I'm like, you could be bisexual. Like, if you grew up dating men and you enjoyed being in relationships with men, like, being bi is a thing. You can enjoy both men and women and anyone else on the gender spectrum. But just the way it was very black and white, it just didn't sit well with me. It didn't sit fully right with me, and that might just be a me thing as just like a straight woman. Someone who is finding their sexuality and like discovering their sexuality might find comfort in this book. I don't know. That does not apply to me, so I'm not here to like cast judgment on this book. I'm just here to tell you that Katie was really annoying and Cassidy deserved better. And that's all I'll say about this one. And then the last book that I have to talk to you about today is Seeker by Arwen Elys Dayton. And this book I really have nothing to say about because it gave nothing while I was reading it, and so I didn't make it very far. I think I made it maybe like 100 pages into this and literally nothing had happened. I feel like this was a first draft of a book, not the whole book. You know what I mean? So, and I'm really upset because the concept, like the synopsis sounds so good. The cover is really pretty. Like I really love this cover. And the synopsis sounds really good. So it says, the night Quinn Kincaid takes her oath, she will become what she has trained to be her entire life. She will become a seeker. This is her legacy and it is an honor. As a seeker, Quinn will fight beside her two closest companions, Shinobu and John, to protect the weak and the wronged. Together they will stand for light in a shadowy world, and she will be with the boy she loves, who is also her best friend. But the night Quinn takes her oath, everything changes. Being a seeker is not what she thought. Her family is not what she thought. Even the boy she loves is not who she thought. And now it's too late to walk away. That sounds intriguing. It sounds like it has promise, but I, again, made it through like 100 pages. I'm saying 100 pages. I don't even remember how much I got through, honestly. It was a while ago. But I just remember that it was giving nothing. It was giving first draft, maybe even should have stayed in the drafts. I was not enjoying it. It was so boring that I just put it down, and I have zero regrets. So it is leaving my house. All right, so those are all the books that I am unhauling at this point. It takes me a while to get a stack of books that I'm gonna get rid of, enough to make an unhaul video, but I'm just not interested in any of these books anymore. Like I said, most of them are DNFs. Some of them are books that a couple of them I read all the way through, but I'm just never gonna read again. In the case of the Eva Ibbotson book, A Countess Below Stairs, that's probably the one that I'm most like, there's no hard feelings. I actually genuinely enjoyed that book. I'm not gonna read it again, and I wanna pass it along to someone who will hopefully enjoy it as much as I did. Those are the books that are leaving my collection. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have unhauled any books recently and how you felt about it, if it was like a cathartic experience, or if you're like me and you're just like, nah, I'm never gonna read these books. I'm just gonna let them go. But I will see you in my next video, hopefully sooner rather than later. If you're interested, I have links to my Goodreads, Storygraph, and Instagram down in the description if you would like to follow me on any of those platforms. Thank you so much for stopping by my little corner of the internet today. I hope you enjoyed your time here, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.